XP12 is out. We've got a new simulator, but does it rival Microsoft Flight Sim? Well, at the moment, most certainly not. In today's video, I'll be giving you my first look at XP12. Please be aware this is not a review, as XP12 is still in public early access, so it wouldn't be fair to do a proper review, but I'll be sort of going through the main points of this simulator, what I like and what I don't like, hopefully allowing you to develop your own initial view of what could be a very good simulator in the future. I'm going to start off by giving you my conclusion. I know that's a bit of an oxymoron, but it should mean that if you just want to catch my thoughts on it, you don't have to sit around for an 8-minute long video, so let's get right into it. Okay, so to conclude, in its current form, I cannot recommend XP12. In many ways, it is just a simple upgrade of the previous simulator in the franchise, XP11. For $60 US, about 50 UK pounds. That, I'm afraid, is not on. I don't know what the Laminar research team thought. Maybe they wanted to get this out as soon as possible to sort of capitalise on the Microsoft Flight Sim market, but that wouldn't make any sense in my mind. If you go around the Laminar research website, they say this is the best simulator ever, the world's best flight sim. I don't know what have got into their heads, but at the moment it most certainly isn't. Sure, many things have been improved and it does look fantastic in areas compared to XP11, but as of now, too many things are just wrong with it. With the Airbus A330, we were promised that this was going to be a highly realistic aircraft, and it's got an FMC that's basically a Boeing FMC. With clouds, they are good and they have been improved most definitely from XP11, but they still sort of do this weird thing popping in and out. And of course, ground scenery has seen a very little changes, and it does feel like I'm going back about 10 years if you're used to Microsoft Flight Sim. So in its current form, I cannot recommend it, and to be honest, I don't know what is in Austin Meyer's head, but this is just not a simulator that can in any way, shape or form compete with Microsoft Flight Sim. Don't get me wrong, Flight Model's better than Microsoft Flight Sim in many ways, but that's it. That is the one thing going for XP12, and a flight simulator incorporates so many more things than that. I would 100% get it if Microsoft Flight Sim's flight model was absolutely terrible, but it's not, so let's put that to rest. At the same time, I don't think it's as black or white as people make it out to be, and I do think XP12 and Microsoft Flight Sim can coexist. The more simulators, the better, really, I think anyway. It's not necessarily Microsoft Flight Sim versus XP12, it's just that at the moment, Microsoft Flight Sim, frankly, is better than XP12. So we'll kick it off with aircraft. A fantastic selection, a bit more than XP11, although it seems that some aircraft have just been simply ported over. But even with the new aircraft, poor execution. With the Airbus A330, as I said, it's got a very, very Boeing-like FMC. You can't do much with it that you would expect to be able to do in an Airbus, even comparing it to the default A320 MCDU in Microsoft Flight Sim. This one just loses out. Notice how I'm calling it an FMC as opposed to an MCDU, because it is, for all intents and purposes, a Boeing FMC. But aside from that, I guess I can't really complain too much because it is a stock airliner, and in many ways it is pretty good. Take your mind back to the Microsoft Flight Sim default A320. First time we got it, you know, it was a nice change to see something like that in a new simulator. So on the surface, the Airbus A330 in XP12 isn't actually that bad, and definitely suffices as a stock aircraft, but at the same time there are some issues they clearly need to fix with it, and I'd say the MCDU would be at the top there. Where XP12 does beat Microsoft Flight Sim, I guess, is how easy it is to set up in terms of aircraft. You might even find that some of your controls you've plugged into your computer are just plug and play, ready to go. Everything's set up as you need, and I guess that's because they've had XP11 to base a lot of the control setups off. Microsoft Flight Sim didn't really have that. The 737 is slightly better, it's definitely improved. I thought there was rumours about Zebu 737 being instantly integrated into XP12, but that obviously hasn't happened. But it's still a nice aircraft nonetheless, and of course if you liked it on XP11 then you'll like it here. In terms of other aircraft, we've now got more helicopters, and to be fair, the R44 is really cool, I really do enjoy it, and of course we've got loads of general aviation aircraft as well, and a new Citation X private jet, which is also pretty cool. You know, it does look a bit old when you go into the cockpit in terms of quality, but it's still a very fun plane to fly, and the external model looks really cool as well. All in all, aircraft, good selection of them, a nice diverse range, but with some of them, especially the newer ones really, there's a slightly poor execution, so you will want to rely on add-on aircraft if you want a realistic experience here. Lucky for you, most of these, or at least some of them, have been ported over onto XP12 already, which I guess says enough about the difference between XP11 and XP12. I mean, looking how long it's taken for people to get aircraft off FSX and move it over to Microsoft Flight Sim. You know, people are still doing it, but with XP12, I mean, it's taken days, weeks, and at the very most months. But we've already got the likes of the ZB 737 over, ready to download. Flight Factor 757 is very close to coming over, as well as the Toulouse aircraft, Airbus aircraft as well. So that definitely says something. Aside from that, another point to make is that replay tool and cameras on X-Plane 12 are much better than Microsoft Flight Sim, but this is X-Plane 11 once again. Those dynamics, replay tool has just been brought straight over from X-Plane 11 onto X-Plane 12, which of course isn't a bad thing because it's very good, but once again it just feels like an upgrade or an update of X-Plane 11 as opposed to a new groundbreaking simulator. Now moving over to scenery, this will be a big surprise to you if you're used to Microsoft Flight Sim. It has improved from X-Plane 11, but it's still very much behind industry standard now. It just looks repetitive, it doesn't look realistic. Autogen is slightly better, as you can see here in San Diego, but I'm just sorry, the fields ruin it. Now go out to sea, and the sea looks much better, some really awesome 3D modelling there, makes it look much more realistic, but I'm sorry, scenery is just a big letdown once again. We sort of expected it because X-Plane 12 Laminar Research said they wouldn't be introducing a sort of Microsoft Flight Sim level of scenery injection, making sure you've got good photogrammetry, that sort of thing. So we should have expected it, but it still is a big letdown and a very big downgrade if you're used to Microsoft Flight Sim. But saying that, the lighting model is fantastic. Definitely at certain times, such as dusk and dawn, it looks really good. Other times, it can look a bit flashed out in my opinion. Night lighting has also seen some improvements. It may even be a bit too dark now in some areas, especially when you're looking on the ground and you can't see that many cars or buildings lit up, but a nice improvement nonetheless. So a bit hit and miss with lighting model, but it's been really nice to see it improved in dusk and dawn. Sunlight looks awesome, as does moonlight, but there's still room for improvement, which makes sense because it's public early access. Moving over to flight model, well, as expected, it's very good. It will take some adjusting if you're used to Microsoft Flight Sim, because it is more realistic. In my opinion, the nose wheel on all aircraft seems a bit too heavy. Maybe it's because I'm used to Microsoft Flight Sim, but now I find as soon as you touch down, the nose wheel sort of slams into the ground, despite the fact you can pull back on your yoke or side stick, which should keep it in the air somewhat, but no, it just seems to slam dunk into the ground. Wing flex has been poorly modelled as well. It seems to do it more on the ground than it does in the sky, which of course isn't realistic. So while flight model is fantastic in some regards, how the aircraft interacts with the air around it certainly could do with a bit of improvement, which to be fair is a bit of surprise for X-Plane. Now with the user interface, it does separate itself away from X-Plane 11, but there are some things you'll do where you'll think, wow, I'm on exactly the same simulator. But it's definitely been cleaned up. To conclude once again, for $60 US, £50 or €55 does not fit the bill. I feel like Austin Myers' ego has sort of got in the way, being completely honest. He did think this simulator was capable of beating Microsoft Flight Sim, and if you watch some of his interviews where Microsoft Flight Sim was about to come out, he sort of brushed it off. Well, I'm afraid, from this anyway, that seems to kick him a bit up the backside. It's good, but it's not great, and it's definitely not worth the money at the moment. Hopefully the Laminar research team can improve on it. There's certainly areas for improvement, and it could become a very good simulator, but as of now, I cannot recommend it. Please remember, this is a video where it's my first look at the simulator. There's still things I'm sure I'll discover. There is a few bugs in the simulator as well. If you look around the internet, you'll see people reporting them. I didn't really see too many, except on install. It just crashed loads, which I guess is part of early access. You can find the link for X-Plane 12 down below. Let me know your thoughts of it as well. From me today, I'll see you around. Bye bye.